Welcome to this explainer, where we are jumping straight into a high-energy debate that's tearing through modern software engineering. We're talking about the massive trade-off between writing clean, elegant C# code and achieving raw, zero-allocation systems performance. I mean, we all want code that reads like poetry, right? But what actually happens when that beautiful code hits massive scale? Let's find out. This brings us to the core paradox of modern C#. On paper, the .NET runtime is blazing fast. It literally competes head-to-head with hardcore systems languages like C++ and Rust in terms of raw throughput. Yet, out there in the wild, enterprise C# applications routinely suffer from severe latency spikes, memory bloat, and totally saturated CPUs. So why the huge disconnect? Well, spoiler alert, the root cause is almost never the runtime itself. It's us. Here's our roadmap of the hidden developer anti-patterns we're going to expose today. First up, the fast C# paradox. Second, clean code versus garbage collection. Third, the async thread pool disaster. Fourth, database and CPU bottlenecks. And finally, number 5, stop guessing, start profiling. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the fast C# paradox. Look at the tension here. On one side, we have our high-level developer habits. We absolutely love idiomatic C#. We love elegant abstractions, hidden allocations, and all that sweet syntactical sugar that makes our code so beautifully readable. But over on the right side, you have the brutal reality of the machine, the .NET Common Language Runtime and its garbage collector. You see, those elegant abstractions, they often quietly fight the CLR. The very tools designed to make us developers highly productive are the exact same tools that when you drop them into high-traffic hot paths, literally bring the runtime to its knees. Moving right along to section 2, clean code versus garbage collection. Let's talk about the memory allocation tax. To really grasp this, we need to understand how the .NET garbage collector actually thinks. It operates on what's called the ephemerality hypothesis. Basically, it assumes that most objects die young. Memory gets divided up into generation 0, generation 1, generation 2, and the large object heap. And the absolutely crucial point here is that most performance bottlenecks don't happen just because you allocate memory. No, they happen because short-lived objects accidentally get promoted to generation 2, which is incredibly expensive to clean up, or they end up fragmenting the large object heap. When that happens, you're creating this heavy garbage that forces the GC to stop the world entirely, just freezing everything, to sweep it all away. And this leads us to the ultimate clash of paradigms, the luxury of LINQ versus the raw metal of span of T. LINQ methods like .where, .select, or .toList, they are pure luxury, undeniably readable. But under the hood, every single call chain is spinning up multiple state machines, delegate closures, and temporary heap objects. Now, contrast that with span of T. Okay, it's not as pretty to read, sure, but it represents absolute raw hardware efficiency. It allows for zero-allocation slicing of memory. It just doesn't create garbage, period. So let's look at the actual damage. Imagine you're processing 100,000 requests per second, and you drop LINQ right into that hot execution path. You are generating hundreds of megabytes of generation 0 trash every single second. The GC has to constantly pause your application threads just to clean up the mess. So what's the fix? You've got to go back to raw for loops and stack allocated primitives. The same exact thing goes for boxing. Passing value types into interfaces forces allocations on the managed heap. The fix there? Hardware-aligned structs. And don't even get me started on strings. They're immutable, right? So concatenating them over and over just allocates endless new buffers. Instead, for high-throughput scenarios, you want to lean on tools like Memory Pool or Value String Builder. Okay, section 3, the async thread pool disaster, the infamous sync over async trap. Picture a super busy parking lot. This is what we call the sync over async disaster. Step 1, you call .result or .wait on a task. The calling thread completely halts in its tracks, but, and here's the kicker, it is still holding on to a thread pool worker. Step 2, the async task it's waiting for actually needs a free thread pool worker to finish its job. Step 3, under heavy traffic, all your workers get blocked waiting for tasks that can't get a worker to finish. It's a catastrophic traffic jam that brings your entire application to a grinding halt. Now, the runtime isn't stupid. It realizes there's a problem and steps in to help by injecting new threads to clear the jam. But it does this painfully slowly to avoid system shock. We're talking typically just 1 to 2 threads every 500 milliseconds. So when you have thousands of requests piling up, adding 2 threads every half second is literally like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. It just isn't going to work.
And a consequence of that starvation? It's genuinely shocking. A simple application that normally boasts a super crisp baseline latency of 10 milliseconds can suddenly spike to a staggering 30,000 milliseconds or more. There's no way around it. Users think the app is down, the load balancer kills the pod, and you are left staring at a wall of timeout errors, all because of a single .wait call.
Hey, before we move on, I gotta throw out a quick warning about value task. It's heavily promoted right now, and for good reason. It reduces allocations for tasks that complete synchronously. But if you await a value task multiple times or call .result concurrently, it isn't just slow. It can actually cause undefined memory corruption and hard crashes. With raw performance comes raw danger, folks. Use it wisely. All right, let's hit section 4, database and CPU bottlenecks. Let's talk about hitting data and hardware limits. So, data access is usually the single largest source of external latency, and Entity Framework Core is notoriously full of elegant habits that absolutely destroy scale. First off, the N+1 query problem. It's a classic. A lazy loading loop sends thousands of individual SQL queries instead of doing one efficient batch join. Then there's the missing .asno tracking. If you're just reading data to display in an API response, tracking that snapshot state doubles your memory and wastes CPU. And finally, client-side evaluation. If you write C# functions inside a database query expression, EF Core might pull the entire table into your application memory just to run your C# logic locally. It's clean code, sure, but it causes catastrophic network and memory spikes. And when we zoom all the way down to the CPU itself, we run into something called false sharing. When developers try to write thread-safe code, they often reach for a naive lock, which basically stalls the CPU cores entirely. But even without locks, if two CPU cores are modifying totally distinct variables, but those variables happen to sit right next to each other on the same 64-byte L1 cache line, the CPU hardware continuously invalidates the cache for both cores. This is called cache line bouncing or cache thrashing. To avoid this, high-performance systems skip simple locks and use lock-free structures like concurrent queue and channels. And if you get false sharing wrong, the brutal reality is it can drop your multi-core throughput by up to 90%. Think about that. You paid good money for a 32-core server, but your enterprise application is running slower than a single-core laptop because those cores are too busy fighting over cache invalidations to actually process any data. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Stop Guessing, Start Profiling. How do we actually synthesize these two mindsets? How on earth do we balance elegance and scale? Well, the answer is incredibly simple. We have to stop guessing. We need to use forensic profiling to apply the right paradigm in the exact right context. So here are your marching orders. First, use BenchmarkDotNet for your micro-benchmarking. It gives you nanosecond accuracy and tracks allocations down to the single byte. Second, use dotnet-trace or PerfView to capture low-overhead event traces, crucially without attaching a heavy debugger that messes with your timing. And third, use dotnet-dump or dotMemory to actually diagnose those Generation 2 leaks and large object heap fragmentations. Look, use elegant, readable link in your background jobs or low-traffic admin panels, absolutely. But in the hot path that's processing 10,000 requests a second, you need to break out the forensic toolkit, measure the bytes, and write raw, zero-allocation systems code. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Ask yourself, are your beautiful abstractions quietly suffocating your runtime? Clean code is incredibly important, but at extreme scale, hardware efficiency dictates survival. So the next time you chain 5 link methods together inside a super busy API endpoint, just take a beat and ask yourself, what is the true cost of this elegance? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy profiling.